This video is brought to you by Skillshare, the largest online learning community for creatives. If you want to draw but you feel like you can't draw, I would like to share with you an approach and a process that will allow you to express yourself and draw something cool right now despite not having any technical skill. This way you'll be able to express yourself, finish your ideas while also practicing toward your desired level of artistic skill. And you won't have to wait until you feel like you're good enough to paint. Let's go. When trying to draw without knowing how to draw, usually the main problems are to know what to draw, to know how to draw it, and to know how to make it look cool. To help me know what to draw, I'd start with what I personally like and I'd use a reference. To help me know how to draw, I would simplify the subject to the core by deconstructing the shapes. And lastly, to help make my drawing cool, I'd make the composition bold and I'd only play with a minimal number of painting techniques. In terms of tools, you don't need anything crazy here, just start with what you have. So prepare some sketching papers. The smaller formats are for drawing thumbnails, and prepare some big ones for bigger sketches, and also some paper for the final illustration. I'm using gouache, but you can use anything that you already have. For example, acrylic pen, ink pen, watercolor, anything that you have. In terms of colors, what I recommend having are just simple colors, black and white, the primary colors, and some secondary colors like green, orange, purple, and pink. Before we dive into what to draw, I'd like to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives. They offer thousands of classes across various fields like illustration, design, and even productivity. With summer here, I think is the perfect season to start exploring new skills and even deepening your current passions. Whether it's animation, filmmaking, or graphic design, Skillshare really has classes that can help you take your creative journey to the next level. Lately, I've been focused on improving my YouTube videos. I want to make them as informative and as enjoyable as possible at the same time. Creating better content is definitely not an easy task, but I've been following Marcus Brownlee's classes about video production. His classes provide really valuable insights and a structure that have been incredibly helpful in refining my own video making process. I've generally been using Skillshare for several years now to help me grow in various areas in life, whether it's editing or time management. Instead of just dreaming about achieving your goals, you really can learn with Skillshare to practice and actually make your dreams happen. I'm actually making my dream happen on YouTube. So if you're looking to level up your skills this summer, I recommend checking out Skillshare. The first 500 people to use the link in the description box will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, and you will really help out this channel. Get started today and turn your I want tos into I made it happen. Now let's get back to the drawing process. Let's start by thinking about what we like and pick a very simple subject to draw. For today's example, I will show you 4 different levels of difficulty. There will be a llama, a bird with a flower, a person, and a Parisian building. You can follow my examples or choose your own subject. It can be a vase full of flowers, it can be a bowl of fruits, anything. Just go with a picture that you like. If you have your own pictures, you can use them as well. Pick the simplest pictures that you can find. Okay, now that we have chosen our reference picture, it's time to simplify our subject by deconstructing the shape. The easiest way to deconstruct is to use geometric shape. A simple tip during this phase is to not erase. Erasing will plunge you into a perfectionist loop, so don't erase, just draw on top of what you've drawn before. We don't need to make things clean yet, so don't worry about that. This is a big piece of paper so that you can have a lot of space to work to understand your subject. From the picture, I can see that the llama has a very long neck, and then it has some kind of a round body and almost triangular shaped legs. Some kind of nose, like the black area here where there's a nose. So an ellipse and a triangle here, and then the eyes, and then there's the ears, which look like this. The neck, it has some hair, and the legs in the front have the white part on the bottom, and it has also some hair on top. Let's try to do it again until we can draw without using the shape. So let's see: long neck, round body, triangular shape for the legs, another one here, and another one here. It's white. Yep. Made two variations of the deconstruction. I'm going to try to draw without using the geometric shape now. To create a bold composition, we have a very simple tool for that we can use, which is the rule of third. And we're going to take a small piece of paper to use to draw our thumbnails for the final composition. Basically, if you want your composition to look cool and bold, especially when you can only draw simple things, you have to keep off the middle of the grid here. That means that our focal point should be anywhere in the top or bottom corners of the grid. But how do we actually do that? First, you need to choose which part of the subject you're going to include in your final illustration. For this case, because the llama is very cute, I want to include its whole body here. Usually what would be a focal point of an animal or a person will be the face. Of course, that can change, but because we want to keep things simple, we're just going to use the face of the llama as the focal point. Our face is going to be here, right? And then the body is going to be here, and the legs are going to be here. So this is our first draft of the llama. I'm going to try again on the other rule of third grid to see if I can make it better. Draw big and fill the space. Don't be scared to fill the space. You can even crop or rotate things as to add more drama to the work. Let's roughly trace the rule of third on our paper, then redraw the approved thumbnail here. During the drawing phase is when you really want to loosen your hand. You can do that by holding your pencil very loosely to allow more fluid movement. Fluid lines will naturally make your drawing look more dynamic and lively. When you follow your hand, it's easier to then exaggerate or ridiculously minimize your drawing in a way that will make your subject look more owned, because you're owning your own hand movements. Loosening your hand also means letting your style develop naturally, just like when you write. We all have our own recognizable writing style, so embrace your hand movement instead of resisting it. Don't worry about the imperfect shape. You can either retouch later or exaggerate the imperfections even more. The focal point is here. The body of the llama is filling the space quite well, but there's also the negative space around it with some movement. There's some tension with the texture of the hair here, and also some harmony. You have the wavy lines here on the legs and on the tail. We're going on the final stage of our entire process now, which is painting. I would say that choosing and mixing colors is definitely the hardest thing that we're going to do today. My best advice for that is to start from the colors that you already have with you. This way you can basically cover all the colors that you might need. But when you start to paint something, it's very easy to think that you need to start with a totally innovative, revolutionary color that anyone had seen before. And that is a mistake, especially when you're a beginner. Just start with the color that you have already. For example, in my case, I'm going to start with purple because it's ready, it's here. And then with this purple or any color that you will choose, we're going to build the palette as we go using this color as the starting point. So don't overthink too much when you choose a color to start. You can always build your palette, and I'm going to show you how. Start by choosing your main color. I'm choosing purple as my main color. Don't question your first choice. Be arbitrary. Use the first color that comes into your mind. This is how you make things feel natural while also developing your sense of choice. I like to start by painting the backgrounds because it makes choosing the colors easier for me. But you can also start from your main subject. Always observe your natural tendencies and go with them instead of against them. This is really important because your art is about your self-expression. You'll make faster progress by listening to your own conjectures in a way. Then choose your complementary color. When choosing a complementary color, you can use a very simple contrast principle. The most common ones are temperature contrast and dark light contrast. In this case, my purple is dark and leans toward the cooler temperature, so I'm going to use a warm light beige to make the painting look vibrant. If I choose to go with a super pale purple or blue or green, in short colors that are considered cool tones, the painting may become dull or monochromatic. If that's what you're looking for, it's fine, but I wouldn't advise that for a graphic result as a beginner. When painting, we need dark, medium, and light tones of our main colors to create lighting and shading effects. This is a harmony technique that allows you to create depth within a limited color palette. In a more complex illustration, you could even bring in an accent color, as you will see later, but that does add a layer of complexity, so do that once you're comfortable with using only two colors first. I'm using a lighter purple to add details to the llama. The llama is pale beige, so to make it pop, I'm outlining with a complementary pale purple. Now for the face, we said that this was our focal point, right? But as you see here, the face doesn't really stand out. So we'll make it pop with the darkest purple. This looked good enough and we could stop here, but if you want to add more texture, you could either use a darker beige or a very light purple to create wavy hair by drawing wavy lines. The key is to use tones that won't steal the show of the focal point. Also remember not to use more than 2 or 3 different textures in the same illustration so that you keep a common thread among all elements. Moving on to the next level, I'm drawing a bird. This level is slightly more difficult than the first as we will add more elements and use a little more colors and textures. We're starting with the same approach by identifying simple geometric shapes but letting them be looser and looser. Don't be rigid about the shape that you see. Draw them as you go. It's absolutely not about being correct at all, but about refining your very own observational and interpretational skill. Once you've understood your topic, move on to the composition, placing it on the rule of third grid. Choose your focal point. In this case, let's stay simple. It will be the bird face. Don't forget to loosen your hand in order to train your hand to have a better muscle memory, if that's a thing. I'm making this piece a little more creative and challenging by adding extra flowers which are not present in our reference. This is how you can start making things more of your own too. To the hardest part, the colors. I'm going with a bright turquoise. It was a very random choice. I insist on the fact that you should really not overthink your color palette too much because everybody's randomness is unique, so follow your intuition even as a beginner. You're going to develop and sharpen your taste way better and faster. I want the bird to stand out from the background, which is quite bright. So in this case, you could make the bird really dark or really light, using a warm tone so that it would detach and contrast with the background. I went with light baby pink. At this level, I'm using more different shades of this pink to make the bird look detailed. Now to the branches, leaves, and flowers. We'll create a color hierarchy which can be tricky for beginners but totally manageable. Our pink bird contrasts with the green background. To make it stand out while supporting its story, we'll use variations of green and pink for the secondary elements. The turquoise background is cool, so I chose a warmer green for the leaves and a pinkish brown for the branch to harmonize with the bird. The flowers are in darker pink. The strong color won't overshadow the bird because the contrast with the background is less sharp than between the bird and the background. It really helps to also think in grayscale to see the difference in contrast between each element. Finally, our focal point. We're bringing in an accent color to add punch to the painting. A simple technique that I personally use intuitively is using another complementary pair. The main complementary pair here is green-pink, so the other left are purple-yellow or blue-orange. I went with blue because the background is green and want to keep everything on the cool blue spectrum. I could definitely have gone with orange, which would have connected the bird to the flowers and the branch instead of the background. And again, perfectly arbitrary choice. I used the darkest blue for the eye and a light blue for textures. For the third level, we're painting a woman in vibrant maximalist fashion. The challenge at this level is to use fewer geometric shapes and incorporate more patterns while also working with a mix of strong colors. During the study phase, identify shapes without drawing them down to train both your hands and eyes. For the composition phase, place your focal point outside the middle as usual, loosen your hand, fill the space, and exaggerate angles for a dramatic and bold effect. Don't be afraid to experiment, I really insist. In the final drawing phase, move your hand freely again and fill the space. When drawing the face, stay simple, use lines for the eyes, nose, and lips. A video on drawing faces is coming soon, so bear with me and let's keep things simple for now. When adding patterns, right now I really recommend to avoid thinking about volume effects. Keep them flat and graphic. They totally will look good. So focusing on volume now will make everything more complicated, so that can come later once you're comfortable with everything else. Because I'm painting with darker colors, I'm retracing with a dark pencil to be able to see the outlines, but that will really depend on the medium that you're using. As usual, color choices are super arbitrary. The reference has a touch of dark blue, so I went with that and started by painting the background. Surprise, surprise. I'm using a quadratic color scheme here, so now it's time to use yellow, red, and green for the cardigan checkered pattern. The red and green are low contrast against the blue background, while the bright primary yellow really bring harmony to the overall and provide contrast that was needed. The cardigan is the focal point here, so I'm using paler shades for the rest of the elements. Starting with a pastel green to paint the skirt, I redrew the geometric pattern to be simpler than the reference, but it's still inspired by the reference. Then I chose coral and pink to paint the back and add more warmth to the drawing. The skin is left white because we really need some light here, and then the face and hair are painted with black lines, the darkest element in the illustration, because the face still needs to be seen and not completely drawn behind the bright colors of this illustration. This is definitely the hardest level of today's video, a Parisian building scene during sunset. The main challenges here are composition and choosing what elements to keep to convey the Parisian feel and what not to keep. The focal point will be less obvious as well, as we will work with many more elements simultaneously. We'll translate real plants into graphic styles that fit the scene and use colors to convey the sunset lighting and mood. During the study phase, decide what to include or exclude. For this particular reference, simplify the complex window frame, roof shape, and plant pots, for example. Focus on what makes a building look Parisian, like the trapezoid roof shape and the wrought iron balcony. We don't need all the balcony balusters, just enough vertical lines to suggest it. This is how you can make things simple. As much as we don't need to draw all the tiles to make the trapezoid roof look Parisian. Understand what you're seeing and iterate as needed. Really don't worry if you don't identify unique characteristic right away. It's super okay to experiment and see things as you do, because that's what will make you really unique. Simplify plant details with simple leaves and pots. Use oval shapes or scribble as you feel it. For colors, let's observe the reference a little bit. We're not diving into light theory right now, as it's a whole other topic, but we'll try to convey sunset in this flat graphic style. I use a pinkish beige to paint the wall. Sunset light is warm and muted, so I paint the normally eggshell color Parisian wall a little darker. The sky turns pink and purple during sunset, so I mixed these beige and dark purple together to paint the sky in the background, creating a fading horizon effect. Clouds also become a darker shade of purple as the sun illuminates them from behind during sunset. Despite the dominance of pastel warm tones, our eyes still need a place to land. I introduce a very dark gray for contrast and start by painting our trapezoid roof. Beginners often fear dark colors, but small dark spots are essential to catch the eye, even on a light pastel work, so really don't be afraid of that. Then I paint the windows darker since the sun is behind the building, leaving them barely illuminated. We don't need more details here, but as you improve, you could definitely play with reflections or scenes behind the windows, for example. To enhance the fading effect, I use purple from the sky to outline the building details, adding shading effect. Coral red is my accent color here. I use it to tie the flower pot and Eiffel Tower together, creating a cohesive landscape without focusing solely on the Eiffel Tower, which I totally could have, but it's just not what I wanted to go for here. See, it's completely fine to be very arbitrary about your drawing. Art is really about your feeling. I finished the last piece of the roof with a light bluish gray using coral red to outline it. creating a subtle contrast with the walls while making them complement each other. Now the overall scene feels sleepy, like sunset time, so adding bright green and yellow to the leaf will wake up the painting without disturbing the sunset vibe either, because I'm only using a small amount here. If you need help with another topic, please leave a comment below. I will do my best to share my approach. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to press the like button and subscribe to the channel. Yes, and get more views too. See you in my next video. Stay playful. Bye bye.